Yeah, you're good. Yep.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. So I have you until lunch. My name is Dr. Lucas. I'm going to talk about the TPA, which is the Teacher Performance Assessment. And hopefully I will get you out of here on time so that you can enjoy your lunch and not have to cram it in like most of us have to do when we're teachers. So, I don't know if you have it in front of you on your laptop or if you have printed a copy of it, but it is on live text. So Dr. Watson is going to be here to kind of help me pull some things up and answer some questions technologically if you have those, or if you need to go to him, he is the person for that. But it is on live text, and I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you an assignment. We're going to meet I'm going to go over task 1 today, and that's it. We're going to meet 2 other times. In the past, we've met 3, but students have kind of said, let's do more in one session. So I just don't think it's feasible to do all of it in one session. I think it'll be major overload. So we're going to divide it up into 2 sessions, and off the top of my head, I think they are January the 31st and February the 5th. 12th? Okay, February the 12th. So you have those dates, and we'll be going over about half of that in each of those sessions. Today, like I said, we're going to go over task 1, but the most important thing, the assignment that I'm giving you now, is you need to read this from cover to cover, word for word, including the rubric, before I see you again on January the 31st. The reason is I won't mention everything in the rubric. I won't go over every word, but you need to be familiar with it so that when you start writing, you will know what you need to do to get a 4 or a 3 or a 2 or a 1, and you won't be surprised when you get those scores, okay? I think you've been told the TPA is due March the 15th. It is due March the 15th by 11:59 p.m. And I think Mrs. Priest told me a second ago that she told you we have heard every excuse in the book. So if you have, for instance, if you have a wild animal that lives with you, you should probably cage it while you have your computer out so that he or she does not destroy your TPA. I say that because that has been an actual excuse for someone not turning in a TPA, is that the cat removed a flash drive and destroyed the computer and all that kind of stuff. So we've heard it all. Please, 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 I say that, not to say that I don't think the cat could have done it, but don't leave your computer out for it to be tampered with by a cat, a child, a spouse, a sibling, a parent, anybody,
Make
roommate,
multiple
whatever.
backups.
What?
Multiple backups.
Yes, multiple backups. Save, save, save. Save as a Word document, save in your live text.
Dr. Lewis, let me interrupt. If you guys are looking on your computers, most of you have the wrong due dates on the computer. I have not fixed that in the system yet. So it could say May, it could say March 6th. I've only had a chance to fix one, so don't panic.
So if it says March the 6th, shoot for March the 6th. That way when it's due on the 15th, you won't be panicked. But seriously, I can't express enough how important it is to not wait until the last minute. Like I said, we're going to go over task 1 today. So by next week, you probably will have task 1 complete, or at least parts of it complete. And then as we go, I'm going to mention a few other things in there to kind of get you started. And then as we go through it, you should be able to do it. I don't know if your supervisors have due dates for you, but that's just kind of maybe to keep you on track. So maybe you want to have some due dates for yourself. So anyway, please don't procrastinate, please. And I guess that's it. We'll get started. Any just general type questions you have? Yes.
I'm on live text right now.
Okay.
It's not on here and neither is my students.
The placement's not going to be on there yet.
Yeah, placement's not
Okay.
going to be on there. What, are you MAT or elementary or?
Yeah, I'm in MAT.
Give it about 2 more minutes and it'll
Okay.
refresh your page.
Any other questions? Let us know if it doesn't come on there. I think the
It
MATs.
does it every 5 minutes, so it's, and I just put it on for you guys in like right at 11 o'clock.
Okay, so let's talk, so anyway, your assignment is, seriously, I know you're thinking, I'm not gonna read that. You really need to read it, because there are things in the rubric that we won't discuss, and you could get a 4 or a 3 as opposed to a 2 or a 1. So speaking of those scores, you must receive a 2 or better on every single element in the TPA. If you get a 1, you will be redoing. You'll only redo that section, but it's going to be crunch time at the end. You will have already been placed in a new placement by the time you get the revision. So let me tell you how that works. It's due March the 15th. The evaluators will have 3 weeks. They usually have 2, but they'll have 3 weeks because spring break has to be in there. So they will have, I don't count that one, so they have 2 weeks to grade, but it'll be 3 weeks on the calendar to get those scores submitted. If you receive any 1s, that information will be sent to Mrs. Rowe, and she's usually our in-between person, and she will contact you and say, the evaluator says you need to redo sections, whatever, okay? You will have 1 week to get that done and resubmit it. And then the evaluator will have 1 week to get that regraded, and then it goes on that weekly schedule. But that's close to the end of the semester, so you don't want to have too many rewrites. So if your evaluator says you need to do this, then do what he or she says and don't submit it again. I can tell you we've had students in the past who ignore what is being said and they submit it again. I've had someone had to redo 5 times. Honestly, should have only had to redo it once, but did not pay any attention to what the comments were from an evaluator, and so the same comments were given back. So pay attention to what's been said and make sure you get that taken care of. If you do not receive 2s or better in every element, do I need to tell you what happens? You will be back here in the fall listening to this all over again, because that means you will have not successfully passed your TPA. Without successfully passing your TPA, you cannot pass student teaching, which then means you cannot graduate. Okay? Has it happened? Yes. Do I anticipate it happening again? No. But I need you to know that it could happen. Okay? So, some of you may be thinking, well, I am not shooting for a 2, because to me that's a C. Please get that out of your mind. Okay? Right now, get it out of there. A 2, you might as well look at that as an A, because if that's what you want, that's what you have to get. If you don't like 2s, then you need to look at the rubric and shoot for 3s or 4s. Okay? This is a state assessment, which means it was designed by a state team. It also means that there are several universities out of the 19 in the state. I think 13 or 14 of them require this. So you are not the only university that this is required of. So it was written by the state team, and they chose to make 2 the target, because that is the way the evaluation for current teachers in the field is written. They are required to get at least a 2, and so if you leave here and you're constantly getting 3s and 4s, and you get out in the field and the principal starts giving you 2s and 1s, then you kind of say, well, wait a minute, I was getting 3s and 4s when I was in college. How could I be getting 2s and 1s now? There are many teachers out there that don't get 3s and 4s. So if a teacher in the field is not getting it, and I'm talking good teachers, not getting 3s and 4s, then, you can decide whether you should get a 3 or a 4. I'm not saying 3s and 4s are not possible. They are, especially one of the ones on standards. All it says is that you include the state and the content standards, and right there's an automatic 4. But if you don't look at the rubric, you probably won't see that, and you may or may not include those. Okay? So you have to get a 2 in order to pass on all of them. You might have straight 2s and 1-1. That 1-1 you're going to be repeating. Okay? Any questions on that? I don't mean to be the downer on that, but I really need to stress so that you know what you need to focus on. Yes, ma'am.
So if you repeat it, you do the work go from the first place.
Yes, you're going to stay with this TPA. I will tell you, if there's too much and you cannot possibly, on our end, we think there's too much, the TPA was just in poor shape to begin with, we might possibly, and this has happened numerous times, we might possibly have you redo the entire TPA in your second placement. Okay? So try not to let that happen. One thing is the video. You will be videoing yourself on portions of the lesson. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks when I come back, but just know that you will be videoing. We have some students, bless you, whose video either didn't turn out, they just didn't video. If you don't video, and your TPA is about that lesson, and you're now in placement 2, if you try to video a lesson there and submit it with this TPA, it's not going to make sense, because I guarantee you the unit you teach in your first placement isn't going to match anything you're teaching in your second placement. So there's a perfect case where you would have to redo the entire TPA. Okay? It doesn't happen often. It's probably happened a handful of times, but it does happen. Okay? So everything TPA is from the first placement unless you have to start off over. Just a little smile would be nice. Look at some smiles back there. I know I'm not giving great information, but anyway, I'm trying to set the stage so that we don't have any of these. So you're going to read from cover to cover before I come back. Rubric and the narrative. Okay, so let's talk about task 1. Task 1 is the contextual factors. I do know that some of you, probably the majority of you, have already done something like this in a class, because we have several faculty who are now incorporating some of this, so I'm seeing some heads shaking. So I'm hoping that you've done something similar to this. This is what it looks like in the, did somebody say something? No. This is what it looks like in what you're going to be reading. It explains it. There are 3 parts. One is the community, school, and family factors. One is the classroom factors, and the third one is the student factors. So in each task, you get this description. You've got a little blurb at the top. You get this description, and then you have a what to do column, and that kind of lists all the questions that you're going to be answering in the actual template, and then required artifacts. So you want to make sure that you have all of that. I will mention here while we're looking at it, I think in all the required artifacts, it's going to mention references. So if you use something that's not your own, please reference it. Here you'll be referencing whatever site you might use to gather some contextual factors. It could be the school principal, it could be the teacher might give you some information, but a lot of you are going to find your information probably from the state site or a county site or something like that. So can you hop to what they're going to be filling out for live text?
You just told me we weren't going to do that.
So on live text, this is what you're going to see. The document itself right now in live text is, I think, how many pages? Is it just
you're talking about
empty, this shell?
I'll give you 1 second. This computer won't.
60 some.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now it's 60 some. So everyone's TPA is going to be at least 60 pages. Okay, the shell that you have is empty. Once you start filling it in, obviously it's going to grow. Okay, so everything that is there. No, let me see the task 1 chart first.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
everything that you're gonna do, it has room to expand. You will, so if you follow the shell, you should not leave anything out. If there's a number one, whatever, you should be answering it. So the shell should be completely full. I can't tell you how many times we've had students turn in TPAs and they will have major sections empty. Okay, I can't think of a reason why that would happen other than you skipped it. All right, because it's there. If there's a space, if there's a question, you need to address it. So the very first thing that you're going to see in section 1 is going to look like this. I won't make you go back unless it's right above this.
It's right.
Is it? Okay. So you're going to fill in this chart, and you can bullet this chart. Okay, you don't have to have complete sentences or anything like that. This is just kind of an outline to help you. You'll notice in the what to do down here, number 2, like here it says complete the template. Down here it says in the narrative, and a lot of those say in the narrative. So, can you show them the narrative part? So you're going to fill out this chart. It's going to be bulleted. And then, this is what you're going to see. So it tells you you're going to analyze and discuss how the community, school, family factors. You chose impact. This is important because a lot of students forget this. How they impact the planning, the delivery, and the assessment of your unit. Okay, so you've put the contextual factors in the chart. Now you're going to do some analyzing. So go ahead and scroll through it. So there's a part B still on, or these are on the classroom, and then there's a C on the student. That's question number 1, and then question number 2. Oh no, okay, it's not. Okay, all right, so we're good. So don't skip a section. All right, I can't tell you how much to write in each of those sections. All I can tell you is make sure you answer the question. Okay? Chances are 2 or 3 sentences won't answer the question. But 200 sentences is a little much. Okay? So some of you, I'm just going to put it out there. We've had TPAs turned in that were 120 pages plus. Okay, now, it's 60 already, or 60 whatever. So when you start adding your stuff, it's not going to be much to double that. So don't panic if yours is over 100 pages, but it's probably going to be close somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay? If yours turns out to be 62 pages, you probably didn't write enough. Okay? So that is task 1. Now, do you want to pull up the chart that you had up a minute ago?
Of course.
Thank you. So you're going to use this in task 1 as well, and it will kind of do some generating for you as far as percentages in your classroom, and you can get these numbers from several different places.
There's a link right on that
there it
spreadsheet.
is. So here's a link.
If
Right
you were
on
in
the
West
chart.
Virginia schools, now, I don't know if anyone's doing a placement in Ohio or Kentucky, but that link will take you directly to the demographic information for your school.
And so you can put in some stuff, it'll automatically do some percentages and stuff like that for you. And I should tell you that in the chart that he had up just a minute ago, you don't have to answer every specific thing that's listed there. Those are listed for just some ideas for you, okay? You probably should do as much of them as you can, but if there's 1 or 2 and you're thinking, yeah, I don't know, it's not, I mean, those are not mandatory, those are just suggested. Okay? And you might find some other stuff that's really neat that you want to put in there. Questions about task 1, the conceptual factor, or the contextual factors?
How do we get to that chart? Where's the link that page you said?
Is that a separate, do you have that as a separate link?
It's in your live text assignment under artifacts, resources, I think is what they call it. Where you're finding the TPA, it's called the WVPTA Chart Maker 3.3.
Okay, so while we're right here, let's look at this for just a second, because the document I want you to read is the WVTPA, sorry, 4.0, that's this hard copy right here.
Your screen looks a little different than mine because I'm looking at it from the faculty side, just so don't think.
This student work file is where you're going to be putting stuff in, where you're going to type. If you type in there, please make sure that you save it every single time. My suggestion would be to put it in a Word document until it is the way you want it, and then you can copy and paste it over, all right? But make sure whatever you do, you save it numerous times. The lesson plan format, the one that it is new, but we've used it, I guess 2 semesters. So you should be familiar with it. It is there, but it has some instructions and all that, but it is also copied and put into the, you want to pull that up? Into the template. So all you have to do is type in that. And you'll see as he's flipping through here quickly, you'll see spaces where you're going to be writing. Okay, here's the lesson plan format. So it's already there for you. I do believe there are 10 of those in there. Your lesson may be more, it may be less, or sorry, not your lesson, your unit. So if you need to delete or add some, that is possible. You can do that if you don't know how we'll help you. But it's already there for you. So make sure that you fill in all of those sections. I'll find something else. Go back to the list of things. Did you talk to them about the consent and release forms?
No, I did not.
Do you want?
Yeah,
Okay. Back here on the list where you have resources, you have a consent and release form, and that is what you will have to have signed by every student in your classroom's parent or guardian. And that will have to be submitted back to you or the teacher. It looks like this, and we need that for video. For you to video that student, that needs to be completed. That needs to be submitted as part of your TPA. But listen, what we want you to do is scan all of those documents into one file. Send that to you or did they put it here?
They uploaded it there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one document, consent and release forms, and you're going to include it. Please don't include it in that template, the TPA template. It's a separate file. Okay, it's just going to contain the consent and release forms, but you are going to upload it here to your live text document.
This question's going to the secondary education. Do we have to just get those consent and release forms for just our focus class or for all the classes?
Just your focus class,
Okay.
just where you're going to be videoing.
All right.
Did you all hear that, secondary? Just consent release forms for your focus class.
You might want to talk about school permission forms don't apply.
Right, if the school says, can't we already do that, we still need this. You can blame it on us, but we have to have these. Even if they say, we'll give you a copy, we have to have this exact form completed by the parents for us.
I feel like the best way that I've seen handling this is if you do an intro letter. You know, we were talking, Ryan and I were talking about an intro letter. You know, I'm your student teacher in your kid's classroom. Da da da. Attach this. You know, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm doing. During the time I have to teach a lesson, Marshall requires that I video this lesson. The only people who will see it are the grader and myself. You know, it's not going to be used and this and that. And attach that permission slip to that intro letter, and typically you'll get those back. No
That's a
problem.
great way to do it, yes.
Would we need to have the date though, when we're gonna?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think it asks for date of activity. You could put toward the end of
I would put like
Put a range.
April or.
I would put like
No, March. Sorry.
January through
Yeah.
March 2019 or something. You know.
Yeah, you don't need an exact date there. Now, I'm just going to mention this. I don't know what Mrs. Priest says, but for those that don't send it in or don't give you the consent, or don't consent for their child to be on video, that's a conversation you need to have with your teacher. But as far as I'm concerned, that's not a reason to send the child out of the classroom while you're videoing. Because regardless of what, when you send a child out of the classroom, whether to sit in the hall or go to the principal's office or whatever, what do they assume is going on? They're in trouble.
yeah.
And they're not in trouble here. I mean, it's not their fault the parent did not or guardian did not want them on video. There could be a lot of reasons. And some of that's really, maybe not our concern. So if that happens, all I would do, again, I would have that conversation with the classroom teacher, the cooperating teacher, but I would strongly suggest that you suggest to the classroom teacher, let me put Johnny and Sally over here. I still want them in a group. They're still going to be with some other people. They're not going to be isolated at a table. I'm going to put them somewhere, but when I video, they're not going to be in it. So I might have the video camera set up this way, and they're sitting here where Dr. Allen is. And so they're not going to be on video. They're still getting everything in the lesson. They probably don't even realize that they're not on the camera. Okay? But they're going to be missing a lot of good teaching that's going on if you have them leave the room during the times you video. Because you probably will be videoing more than once. You should be videoing more than once. Things happen with video cameras all the time. Okay? Anything else about task 1? Yes?
So we can take like several videos and then submit our best.
Yes, but you can't pick and choose little pieces from each one. But yes, you can edit but not splice. Is that the best way? Kind of.
You could splice but not edit.
Right, sorry, I said that backwards. You can splice but not edit. My fault.
Can't bleep out the cuss words you said to your students.
So anything, okay, so anything about task 1? Okay, I'm just going to give you some general information so that you can kind of start thinking, because it's going to be 2 weeks or so before I see you again. And by that time, you've had some good time in the classroom, and I'm sure you're thinking about unit. You're probably thinking about your unit today. Your unit is based off, from what you teach in your unit, is based off of your pretest. So you must give a pretest to your class to determine what is going to be covered in your unit. So you can't go in there and say, okay, we're going to teach a unit on fractions. And we're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. And I'm going to write all my lessons. It is a great unit. And then you, as you start teaching it, you say, oh my gosh, they already know how to add. They already know how to subtract, and they're really good at it. So those are the first 4 days I had in my unit, and now I'm just kind of going through it quickly, and it's not meaning anything. Had I given the pretest, I would have discovered that on the pretest. They already know how to add and subtract fractions quite well. So I don't need to cover that. So I could have gone further with maybe some expanded addition subtraction. I could have started with my multiplication division. So you have to give a pretest. Your pretest determines what your unit is about. Okay? Your post-test, you have to give a post-test because you want to know if what you covered, they learned. Your pre-test and your post-test are identical. Some people say they shouldn't be, some people say they should. For this assignment, they are identical. Okay? It's really hard to determine if a student achieved what you wanted them to do if you don't have the same question as you started out on the post or pre-test. Okay? So as you're thinking about your unit, go ahead and design your pre-test. You'll be coming up with standards. You'll be picking standards from the college and career readiness standards that West Virginia uses that go along with your unit. From that, you'll be writing goals from those standards that you want your students to achieve. Okay? Your rubric says, and the directions say that you have to have at least 3 goals. So some of you will have 10, 12, 15. Before you go crazy, think about that as you read the TPA, because there's a lot of stuff you need to do. But the reason I'm mentioning it now is because when you write your pretest, you want to make sure that those goals are covered in your pretest. There's a chart at the very end that you'll need to keep track of which goals were accomplished and which were not. Okay? So at least 3 goals. Many of you may have more than 3 goals, but at least 3 goals, and they will come from the standards. So there's not really a limit on how many standards you have to say, and if you've looked at college and career standards, they are getting broader and broader, so that I think the fraction one I just mentioned, I just looked at 5th grade today, and everything about fractions is in one standard. So they are getting much broader.
You know, just a piece of advice. If you have a question, obviously just send it to me or send it to Dr. Lucas. I'll usually forward it on to her or get her advice on how to answer it. But read the rubric first. We actually had a meeting with a student last semester who had all these TPA questions. And as we pulled up the rubric, he said, "Oh, well, where'd you find that?" We were like, "On your live text. Click the link." You know, so read through the rubric. And then if you don't understand, that's perfectly fine. We're here to answer your questions. But, you know, don't just read the question or read the narrative and just not, you know, understand it and move on. Okay? Work from the rubric.
And then if you have questions, as you read through this document, write them down.
Yeah.
Like I said, we'll meet again in about 2-3 weeks, and I'll go over half of it. I'll probably get you through the unit, and then the next time we'll talk about the videoing and all of that. Okay. So, questions that you have or you think you have? Yes.
The TPA, how much of it, like, would it probably be first-hand experience versus research? Is there any
I
research?
would say 95% is going to be firsthand experience. I don't know that any of it really is going to be research, other than for the contextual factors, you're going to have to do a little bit of at least looking up. I'm not sure if I call that research, but get the information from somebody else. But the rest of it is you hands-on, what you did, how you did it, you reflecting on the lessons, how your students performed for you, what was your impact on learning, teaching them, did they learn?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So this is all you. Everyone's will be different. Other questions? Yes.
Okay, so like the 3 of us have our endorsement in special education. Do we have focus classes too? Because I have every grade but second. So
Yeah, I have every single grade, K through 5.
You're going to do the TPA on your first placement.
yeah,
So-
that is
K
for my
through
first
Oh, okay,
placement.
so I know the special ed's a little bit different. I did work with them separately last time. So I'm gonna leave it and say your supervisor will probably guide you as to how she thinks you need to do it best. And if I need to meet with you all, I can. I did with them last semester. Do they have the same supervisor? then?
Yes.
Okay.
She's great.
That'll be
Yeah.
perfect. You'll really guide. But if you have other questions after you meet with her, then we can answer those next time, or you can answer me. Yes,
Okay, so the Excel chart,
yes.
I'm so confused, what exactly do we use that for?
And I heard you say something chart.
The Excel chart.
The
Oh,
Excel chart.
The one he put up to begin with?
Yeah.
That's going to kind of help you. I mean, you're going to fill this out because it's part of it, but that's going to help you, instead of you actually doing the calculations, that's going to help you do the percentages and things like that.
To answer your question, when you go down through the tasks, I think it's task 5 or task 6 is impact. What impact did you have? So this will allow you to put the scores in, and it
Okay.
will make nice graphs for you, just copy paste.
There's more, maybe that's what I should, there's more to this chart maker than just this. This is part one, but you're gonna see, there's
Okay.
gonna be charts that you're gonna have to, bar graphs, charts that you're gonna have to make. And what we did about 2 or 3 semesters ago, instead of you concentrating on making the bar graphs and all of that, we decided to do it for you. So all you have to do is put in the scores and all the information, and it will make the bar graphs for you. And then you put those in your document, and then you discuss them. We're more interested in your analysis of the data, not that you can make a pretty bar chart
Okay,
or bar graph.
thank you.
Uh-huh, yes.
Is this, I assume this is a project we could, submit a draft to our supervisors, without guidance to a final product now, or is it a one-time submit?
It's a one-time submit, well, it's a one-time initial submit, and then the evaluators will tell you what pieces you need to redo. Okay, as far as submitting it to your supervisor, because this is a state requirement and a state document, it has to be done the same way at every state university institution. And so that is not what the team wanted to happen. We want to see your work, and we don't want it to be previewed before that, the preview. And it's a line very similar to other schools that don't use this, either do EdTPA or PPAT, and they're very similar to this. The only difference is it's a huge cost to the student. It's another test. This is free, and it is sent off to be scored by either Pearson or ETS. So this is our version of that, the state's version of that. And so we want, because you couldn't do that if you were going to send it off either. I mean, they kind of want the first initial submission. So your supervisor will not ask for it and make corrections and then send it back and have you submit it to live checks. Did that answer your question? Other questions? Yes.
So obviously, we're teaching more than the 5 to 10 day unit, but this is going to be focused on, or would you like us to show more than 10 days on this?
This TPA is based on your unit, okay? And in the directions on the very front page, I think it says, somewhere in here, of course I'm not gonna find it right now. Somewhere in here, I think it says a unit, I wanna say it says, oh yes, a minimum of 3 to 5 lessons. Now, that is the state directions, but right after that, it says somewhere, whatever your university requires. Our university requires 5 to 10. Okay, so don't look at that and say, but it says 3 to 5 lessons for my unit. Mm-mm. Okay, that's minimum for those universities that don't have requirements, but ours are 5 to 10.
So should we wait for that portion until after we learn about the videoing? Or,
Wait to write your unit?
no, but like to teach the part that we need to video? And so after like we learn about it on February 12th?
Well,
Or can we go ahead and video whenever?
you,
I think we end up talking about the video next time.
right, I'll mention enough about the video the next time that, because you won't be ready to video by January 31st. And I'll mention enough about it so that you'll be ready for it, so. Because if you wait till
Yeah, I thought that was.
February.
Late then.
it might, I mean, some people won't video until way after that, but, you know, we're talking less than a month then, or right around a month that it's due, so. So other questions? So I didn't say that you couldn't start your unit. Okay, I've given you enough information about that, but before you start your unit, you have to do what? Have to give a pretest. I mean, you can start planning your unit, but the pretest will determine how it's going to go. And it will be obvious to the evaluator if you do it in reverse order. So as you write your questions for your pretest, you want to make sure that they line up to your goals, because you're going to have to put that in a chart. You just want to show them. Let me just show you that chart real quick.
Which chart?
The one where they have to list whether the goal was achieved or not.
So that's what, test 3?
It is later than that. It's 6. Impact on student learning.
Oh, okay. Always get my numbers mixed up.
Okay, so this is a similar chart. There's just examples in here for you to look at, but this is what you're going to have to list every single student, whether they, on the pre-test and the post-test, whether they got that question correct. Okay? So if you don't align your questions to your goals, and when you get to this part, you're going to have to go back and kind of figure out what's what. So it's a whole lot easier, and it won't mess them up, but by each question, if you'll just put goal 1, goal 10, goal 12, whatever, that way you can keep track of it. But we'll talk about this later. Yes?
What time is our meeting on the 31st?
1?
Either 1 or 2. I'll send a reminder, no problem at all. I think it's
Because I
1.
remembered I had a quick
Yeah.
time after class. I think it's 1 to
Yeah.
3. It may be longer since we're gonna, but anyways, 1. Other questions? I hear bells now.
In the elementary portion, are we doing like integration with ours?
Yes, I mean, you should be doing integration, and those of you that are elementary majors, talk to your supervisors as well, because your unit is going to encompass all subject areas, and so how he or she wants you to do that is what you need to go by, because you will have many more standards and many more goals than someone who is just teaching one content area. Yes. You do have focus students, yes, that's another reason you need to read this. You will be picking focus students, so you can start looking for those. When you go out tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, start looking for those. And I'm just going to tell you, it does not have to be like a high and a low, bless you. It doesn't have to be one with an IEP and one that doesn't have an IEP. But just look to see what students you would like to, I hate to use the word compare, but what students you would like to analyze
In depth.
in depth. There you go. So, yes.
So, that question reminds me of a question about task 6.
Uh-huh.
The results for the pre and the post assessment, we just use the results from our focus students and not
No,
the entire focus
the
class?
entire class.
You have to put down the results for the entire class?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You're going to keep a list of every single student in your class, what the scores were, pre and post. I think he's going to that.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Where that,
Yeah.
in the document, it has been expanded. That's just a sample that's in this that you're going to be reading. It's 6.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was up there.
So in addition to reading this, you might want to glance through the template just to see if there's anything in there that, here it is, that you're not quite sure about. But here's the chart that's in the template. You'll put every student, now we can put, let's call them student A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, put initials. Just, you don't want to identify students. And then what a lot of students will do is either highlight or star or put a dash, F1, F2 for focus student 1 and 2. Somehow you need to let us know who your focus students are. Okay, but every single person in your class, you're going to give their pre-test, their post-test, what their gain was, whether it was positive or negative, and then you're going to tell whether they did or did not achieve that goal.
Let me give you a little tip. I mean, this is way ahead of time, but since we're looking at this chart. you want to open the Excel spreadsheet just to glance and see how you're going to enter this information, because these scores for these learning goals will go into that spreadsheet. And on the spreadsheet, Focus Student 1 and Focus Student 2 are the first two lines. So I would recommend that you match that with this, meaning F1 or F2 would be your first two students you would list on this chart, because then you're just literally moving from one to the other.
Because the scores you put here, it's going to use those in the spreadsheet. It's going to use those to make the bar graphs so that you don't have to do that. And I think probably there's 6, 7, 8, 9. It depends on how many goals you have. But you can have, in excess of 10 bar graphs in your actual template, your actual TPA.
So with this, that only has 4 goals on it, so if I have like 10 goals, do I only put 4? Or do
No.
I have to figure out how to add more?
Well, yes. No, you don't put just 4. You're going to put them all in there, and we will help you figure out how to do that.
You basically make copies of this.
Yeah, you just take, yeah.
On the spreadsheet, it can go up to 20,
Yeah, but
which is the record I've come across for someone.
We'll help you do that.
But this, yeah, we'll help you.
I have a question about that gain column, because I'm never really sure. On the plus or the minus, is the expectation that they actually put like a increase plus 15, or is it just a plus, or just?
Either one is fine. Some students will do either or,
I've
so
seen
we
it both ways.
we don't really say, because mathematically, the increase and decrease is not just 10 points or 5 points, but nobody does that. So either one is fine. Yes?
For those teaching middle and high school where we'll have separate periods, are we only doing it for one classroom?
Yes.
That means the focus.
Yep, you're going to pick your focus class, and that's the only class that you're going to send the consent and release forms home to.
Excellent.
Yes?
Are there any other tasks that involve focus students?
Are there other tests that involve the focus students?
I don't understand the focus students.
You're going to pick 2 students in your classroom. Like I said, I hate to use the word compare, but I'm going to use the word compare. That you're going to compare. Like maybe you have one that a lot of people like to do male and female. Now, I know the majority of people would say you need to pick one that has an IEP and maybe one that doesn't. But you can pick any 2 focus students you want. You might want to compare little Sally, who's a blonde, to little Johnny, who's a brunette. And just see, are there differences? So you're gonna be talking about them. Look in here, because there is a section where you have a chart that you have to talk about the focus students. Of course, I'm gonna find, I think it's 6, but I could be wrong. So you want to kind of look at that when you go in and see maybe the first day you go in, you see someone who doesn't say a peep all day long, and you see someone else who is bouncing off the walls. And so you want to see, how well they achieve. Is there a difference? Because this one doesn't say anything, and this one looks like he or she is not paying one bit of attention. Maybe this one gets the better scores and this one doesn't, I don't know. So you can pick any 2 you want. You don't have any stiff tongue. Did that help?
Yes.
Okay. But you've got to have a reason for picking them. You can't just say, oh, well, I just picked 2 just because I don't know, I don't have a reason, I just picked them.
Because they wore a Browns t-shirt.
Yuck.
Yes, they are at random, but you've got to have a reason. You still can be random, but have a reason for it. Any other questions? So I'm going to see you on February the 12th, January the 31st. First, I will also see you on January 12th, and you are going to have done what for me?